Chapter 6. The Clothing Industry. All around the world, millions of people work in the clothing industry. Famous designers and models make a lot of money. Other people don't make much money, especially the workers in factories. Designers. All designers are good at drawing. Many are good at sewing, too. Designers know about different fabrics and colors. Everything begins with the designer. The designer has an idea for a piece of clothing and draws a design on paper or on a computer. The designer chooses the best fabric for the piece of clothing and puts it with the design. Buyers. Buyers work for big department stores or for supermarket chains. They choose clothes for their stores. They tell the factory how many clothes they need. Big stores buy thousands of clothes every year. They usually want a summer collection and a winter collection. Before one winter ends, the buyer chooses the clothes for the next winter. Factory workers. Factory workers use a sewing machine all day. They work fast, putting the pieces of fabric together, sewing zippers, and adding buttons. Do you think this is an interesting job? Maybe not, but the clothing industry pays money to thousands of factory workers, and it helps their families to live. The clothing industry is an important part of the world economy. Sales clerks. Sales clerks work in the store and help people to choose clothes. Sometimes, customers want to try on lots of different clothes, so sales clerks must be patient. The supply chain. What is the story of a piece of clothing, for example, a coat? How does a designer's idea become a coat in a store? We call this story the supply chain. A designer designs some new coats. A buyer looks at the designs. She chooses the best design for her store. The design is sent to a factory. A factory worker makes one coat and sends it to the buyer. This first coat is called the sample. A model puts on the sample. The buyer and the designer look at it. They choose different colors. The buyer chooses numbers and sizes. She sends an order to the factory. All the coats are made in the factory. They are taken to the store by ship and by truck. In the store, a sales clerk helps customers to decide if they want to buy a coat. Protecting factory workers. In some parts of the world, factory workers are not paid much money. Even children have to work in clothes factories to make money for their family. Some organizations try to protect workers in the clothing industry. The Fair Trade Foundation wants stores to pay factory workers enough money. When this happens, a store can call its clothes fair trade clothes. Many customers prefer fair trade clothes because they aren't made by children or other poor workers. The Fair Trade Foundation also uses newspapers and advertisements to tell people about the problems of factory workers. Chapter 7. Fashion. Some people like wearing the newest design of clothes. They like buying magazines and reading about the newest fashions. Clothes are in fashion for a year or two. Then they start to look old-fashioned, and people want something new. Changing fashions. The clothes that are in fashion change all the time. Long skirts, short skirts, wide ties, narrow ties. Sometimes designers change traditional costumes to make them look fashionable too. Where do most new ideas come from? From the past. If clothes from 5 years ago aren't fashionable now, what about clothes from 10 years ago or 50 years ago? Elvis Presley was a famous American singer. People thought that his clothes were a new idea, but they weren't. Sometimes he wore a long jacket. His grandfather probably wore a long jacket too. Clothes for everybody. Hundreds of years ago, rich people chose the next fashion. Look again at the man and woman on page 9. They were rich, so they could buy the most fashionable clothes made of the most expensive fabrics. Then things began to change. About 100 years ago, fashion became a big business. Now, clothes manufacturers want to sell clothes to everybody, not only to rich people. T-shirts and jeans. Fashion changes all the time, but a few clothes like T-shirts and jeans have been fashionable for a long time. You can find T-shirts around the world. They are comfortable and cheap. They are usually made of cotton, so they are easy to wash and quick to dry. Manufacturers can put words and pictures on T-shirts. In some stores, you can choose the words and pictures on your T-shirt. You can have the words, "I love," and the name of your town. You can even have a photo of your pet. People use their T-shirts to show their personality.
Discover!
About 100 years ago, you didn't see people in T-shirts in the street. The first T-shirts were underwear. About 500 years ago, sailors in Genoa in Italy wore clothes made of a strong cotton fabric called Genoa fustian. This name changed to jean fustian, and later it became just jean. Now pants made of this fabric are called jeans. In North America, cowboys wore jeans because the fabric was strong. Then, jeans became very popular when young actors wore them in movies. One of the most famous manufacturers of jeans is the Levi Strauss Company. There are small metal rivets on the pockets of Levi Strauss jeans. These rivets stop the pockets tearing. Rivets were used in jeans from about 1870. Chapter 8. Crazy Clothes. Some people always want to look different from other people. They like looking for new fashion ideas. Some of these ideas are really strange. There have always been crazy clothes, but would you really like to wear them? Fashion shows. The most expensive clothes are made by famous designers, usually in Paris, Tokyo, London, or New York. Movie stars, pop singers, and other rich people pay thousands of dollars for clothes made by famous designers. Every year, designers show their new ideas at fashion shows. Models put on the clothes and walk on a stage. Some of the clothes are amazing, but you can't really wear them. Designers often make crazy clothes because they want to see photos of them in the newspapers. Fashion victims. There have always been crazy fashions. Some of them are really funny. In the past, people wore incredible hats or wigs. Some women wore very high shoes, so they couldn't even walk. They had to walk with a servant and hold her arm. In most countries, people looked at big cities to learn about the newest fashions. If they wanted to see the most amazing clothes, they usually went to the capital. People from the countryside liked laughing at the funny clothes in big, busy cities. There are still people who spend a lot of money in clothes stores and want all the newest fashions. We call them fashion victims. Street fashion. Today, you can still see amazing clothes in big cities. Some designs are invented by groups of young people who like the same clothes. These designs are called street fashions. Are there street fashions in your country? In the United Kingdom and many other countries, goths wear black clothes and white makeup. They look like people in a scary movie. In Japan, there's a street fashion called Harajuku. This fashion is a colorful mixture of different types of clothes. It's called Harajuku because the people in these clothes meet in the Harajuku area in Tokyo. Be yourself. Your clothes say a lot about you. If you wear a traditional costume, it helps you to remember the history and the culture of your country. Other clothes show people your personality. What are your favorite colors? What type of person are you? Are you serious? Are you sporty? Do you like to be fashionable? The answers are in your clothes. Clothes are interesting and fashion is fun, but remember, people are more important than clothes. Don't be a fashion victim. Just be yourself.
Oxford Read and Discover, Level 6, Clothes Then and Now, by Richard Northcott. Read by Roger May. Published and copyright, Oxford University Press, 2010. Introduction. Let's think about clothes. Jeans, t-shirts, dresses, and sweaters. You can find these clothes in most countries around the world. Look at the photos below. Which clothes are the same as clothes in your country? Which are different? What clothes can you see here? What are your favourite clothes? What are they made of, and where were they made? What do you know about clothes in the past?
Discover!
Now read and discover more about clothes in the past and clothes today. Chapter 1. Why do we wear clothes? We wear clothes because we want to be comfortable. We wear clothes because we want to look good. Do we always wear the same clothes? Of course not. We wear different clothes when we do different things. Clothes for important days. Are you wearing your best clothes today? Maybe not. We wear good clothes at school, but we wear better clothes at parties or on important days. Weddings are very important days. In this photo of a wedding, the people are wearing beautiful clothes. They are made of an expensive fabric called silk. Wedding clothes are different in different countries, but one thing is the same everywhere. People wear their best clothes on the most important days. Clothes for every day. In the past, clothes were often big and heavy. The old clothes above don't look very comfortable. Most people couldn't buy clothes made of light fabrics like silk because they were too expensive. There were no synthetic fabrics like nylon. Today, our clothes are light and easy to wear. They are made quickly in big factories. Millions of clothes are made every day. Most people have lots of different clothes because they are cheaper now. Staying cool or warm. We wear clothes because we want to be comfortable in hot or cold weather. In hot weather, tight clothes are uncomfortable. If we wear loose clothes, the air can move around our bodies and help us to stay cool. The men above live in a hot country. They are wearing long white shirts called dishdashers. White clothes are cool in hot weather. The men's turbans and scarves protect their heads from the sun. In colder countries, people also cover their heads. This is because they don't want to lose heat. In places where the winter is very cold, people wear hats made of wool or fur. Heat from the body stays in the wool or fur and keeps people warm. Looking good. That's a great T-shirt. Where did you buy it? We're always happy when our friends like our clothes. We like wearing nice clothes because we want to look good. How do we look good? People's ideas about that have sometimes changed. About 400 years ago, people in Europe wore big white collars around their necks. You can see one in this painting of a woman from Holland. To look good today, men wear ties and women wear scarves or jewellery. The head and neck have always been important in the design of clothes. When we meet people, we usually look at the top half of their body, their face and their eyes. Some people want to look rich and important. They buy expensive clothes made by famous designers. Presidents and politicians usually wear expensive clothes.
Discover.
In ancient China, yellow was the emperor's colour. only the emperor could wear yellow clothes. Chapter 2. The History of Clothes. People started wearing clothes about 100,000 years ago. Their clothes were made of animal skins. People also used to weave grass together to make rough fabric. Clothes were probably the same for men and women. Making fabrics. About 8,000 years ago, people learnt to weave threads together to make pieces of fabric. They used threads of wool, cotton, or linen. They sewed the pieces of fabric together to make simple tunics. These early clothes were like our T-shirts today, but they were longer. Later, people used looms for weaving. This linen tunic from ancient Egypt is now in a museum. It's about 1,500 years old. We don't have many clothes as old as this tunic. Fabric doesn't usually last long, so people throw old clothes away. If we want to know about clothes in the past, we can look at old paintings. The spinning wheel was invented about 2,500 years ago in India. With spinning wheels, people could make thread more quickly, so making fabric was easier. Fabrics became more comfortable. If you were rich, you could buy lots of different clothes. This picture was painted in 1434. It's from Belgium in Europe, and it shows a rich man and woman. The man is wearing a long tunic. At this time, men in Europe and in Asia wore tunics. The woman is holding the front of her dress. There's beautiful decoration on her dress, but its shape is simple. It's like a tunic, but it's longer than the man's tunic.
Discover!
People carried their money in small purses tied around their waists. They cut slits in their tunics to reach their purses. Later, these slits became pockets. The first pants. The first pants, or trousers, were very simple. They were made of two pieces of fabric sewn together, a front piece and a back piece. They were worn under a tunic. This photo is from about 1870, and it shows a woman from Pakistan wearing a salwar kameez, which means pants tunic. In America and Europe at that time, women wore long dresses or skirts. Modern clothes. The first clothes were made of a few pieces of fabric. Then people got better at sewing, and clothes became more complicated. There were different pieces of fabric for the front and the back of a coat, for the sleeves, and for the collar. In a modern jacket, there are sometimes 60 different pieces of fabric. Not all modern clothes are as complicated as a jacket. You can make a T-shirt or a sweatshirt with only 4 pieces of fabric. Look carefully at some of your clothes. How many pieces of fabric are there?